Okay, I want to really try and get this video done quickly because my landlord is working downstairs and it's going to get very noisy pretty damn quick. So on my walk home this morning, just got home, I came across an interesting chap. Now this man stopped me, his name's David, and he stopped me and he asked me if he was on the best route to walk to Canterbury. Bit of context. We're in Dover, Canterbury is a fair few miles away and you shouldn't walk it. You should get a bus if you haven't got a car, or a train or something like that. But I said, yes, you're on the safest route. There is another route. It's very dangerous. It's a dual carriageway. You're on the safest route, but bus. And he said, actually, I'm walking to London. I started in Germany and I'm walking to London to figure out if we should go ahead with Brexit. So after my initial shock of, oh my God, this man is walking from Germany to London for political reasons, I laughed and said, I can save your legs. No, Brexit should not go ahead. Not at all. And we ended up having a really interesting conversation at the side of a road. He gave me his card with his website, and I will link that down below, as well as all other social media platforms that I find for David, and I will keep you informed of his progress as best as I can. One of the things that we came up was the dialogue, and that is a stunning thing when it's pointed out to you. People aren't talking about Brexit. They're not talking about the consequences or potential or lack thereof. Instead, what's happening is we're being bombarded by politicians who want out, by politicians who want to remain, and by the media, which mainstream media by and large is pushing for a no-deal Brexit, is pushing for a hard Brexit. Yet we're not actually having that dialogue. What does it actually mean? And even here, right now, this is not really an interaction, though I generally try to interact with the comments as best as I can. This is still just me talking at a camera and someone watching it at the other end. It's not really a dialogue. So when I come out and say the NHS themselves on their website have said there is going to be a massive issue with drugs, especially when it comes to people who suffer from epilepsy. Again, that's not a dialogue we're having, but it's media bombardment. And if you've already picked your camp, you're going to ignore it. Because leading on to the another critical factor with Brexit is that people are just done talking about it. It is the most important thing to happen, certainly in my lifetime, but debatably with this country in general. And yet we're sick of talking about it. The ramifications are unforeseeable after a certain point, and we can't just suddenly change our mind. If we leave today, for example, we can't just change our mind next year and say, okay, we fucked up, let's go back. It doesn't work that way. And yet we have all these experts coming out and saying, no, actually we're going to be less safe because we're not going to have access to the intelligence we have right now. The NHS is going to suffer because we're not going to be able to get in the life-saving drugs that we have right now. People with epilepsy, there are some people who won't be able to drive because the medication that they need to stop them from having a seizure won't be readily available. You have one seizure and you are not allowed to drive. You have to go a year without having a seizure. But then if you don't have the medication that you've been relying on, seizures are going to become more common. That's going to cost jobs, livelihoods. And my God, if you have a seizure while you're driving a car, Jesus Christ, that could go so badly. There is no good upside of that. There's no good scenario. It's just one that hopefully doesn't kill as many people. Yet these aren't the conversations that we're having. And that's part of the issue. We're being told, we're being bombarded, but we're not actually talking to one another about the issues. People who are very adamant for Brexit are only really talking to each other. People who are very, very much pro-Remain like myself, again, we can only talk to each other because the Brexiteers, when we point out the massive flaws, the conversations stop. I had a conversation with someone and we were going on, he started ramming on, the EU determine what we do with our laws. It's because of them we can't lock up paedophiles. A quick fact check, just between us and France. The UK tends to have a harsher punishment or a more severe punishment, a longer sentence for paedophiles than France does. So straight away, that's wrong. And yet, the conversation ended with that because he had nothing left to fall back on. And David went on to a fantastic point. That was the two biggest reasons people voted for Brexit. Now, I'm not saying everyone who voted to leave the EU voted for these reasons, but certainly the two biggest. The 350 million per week for the NHS, which had to be backtracked before they'd even finished a bloody campaign, and immigration. Germany took in more refugees and asylum seekers than any other EU nation. The exact number eludes me for the moment. I will put it down below though. And yet, Germany is now going through the lowest crime rate they've had, I believe, since the 1970s. And once more, the employment records are at the highest they've been for ages. And unlike the UK, where we simply redefined what being unemployed actually means, theirs is actual real employment. These jobs actually exist. It's not just someone who was 5 minutes late for their job centre interview, got sanctioned, and because they got sanctioned, they're now not classed as actively seeking employment and therefore by default employed. Yes, that is exactly one of the disgusting, dishonest tactics that we've used, or that our government has used. So I'm going to link David's website down below. I'm going to keep you updated as best as I can, and I am going to try my damnedest to spread his message over social media, because this is one of the most important things that is going to happen to our country, and people have stopped wanting to talk about it. That is beyond mental.